All right, diving in today, folks. We're looking at ASML, kind of in the hot seat right now. Big decisions to make. China, the U.S., this whole global semiconductor game. Everyone's ramping up production. It's getting crowded out there. And you sent over some really interesting analyses. So the question is, why is ASML doubling down on China when the U.S. is breathing down their neck? And what happens if they actually walk away?
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation. You hit the nail on the head. The semiconductor industry is not the Wild West it used to be. Way more players, way more chips means a company like ASML really needs to pick their battles.
So China. That seems to be the battle they've chosen. And it's not just big, right? I mean, the numbers in these reports. China's their biggest customer. We're talking like billions in revenue.
Yeah.
You can't just ignore that.
No, not at all, especially when you compare it to the US market, which, it's important, sure. But the sheer volume,
Yeah.
not even close. Plus, the US is still trying to get its own act together when it comes to actually making these chips on a large scale. Reports are kind of mixed on how that's going.
Right, the U.S. might be great at designing the chips, but they need someone to actually build them. And that's where China's leading the pack. But now you've got the U.S. putting on the pressure, telling ASML to cool it with those high-end EUV machines going to China. Feels like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is the analysis we've got here, it really paints this picture of a lose-lose for ASML if they cave to U.S. pressure. You're talking about billions in lost revenue, potentially. And what's more, some experts suggest these export controls the U.S. is pushing, they might not even slow China down that much. They might just end up pushing China to come up with its own alternatives.
So ASML loses money, loses market share, and China just keeps chugging along anyway. Ouch.
Yeah, kinda. And the thing is, the U.S. isn't offering anything to soften the blow. No financial help, no guarantees, just, hey, take one for the team. It makes you wonder if it's even realistic to expect a company to cripple its own business like that without some sort of safety net.
For sure. And then there's the whole question of, okay, so the U.S. designs these fancy chips, but who's going to make them? The analysis points to Asia, companies like TSMC, Samsung, they're the big dogs. Even Intel, right here in the U.S., is struggling to keep up with them on cost and efficiency. It really highlights how interconnected this whole industry is.
Yeah, it's not a simple equation. This idea that the U.S. could just suddenly flip a switch and be completely self-sufficient when it comes to making these top-tier chips on a massive scale, it's a long shot. There's a lot more to it. Raw materials, specialized parts, skilled labor. It's a global effort.
So ASML's stance, it's not political, it's practical. In a market that's getting crowded, sticking with their biggest customer, China, that's just good business. Like the analysis puts it pretty bluntly, ASML cannot afford to sacrifice its biggest market for geopolitical reasons when the U.S. isn't offering a real alternative.
Right, and taking it a step further, the analysis suggests that staying engaged with China is basically essential for ASML to stay competitive, to even survive in the long run. Cutting off China, given how things are right now, it's framed as a move with only losses for ASML.
Interesting. So bottom line, for ASML, sticking with China is about staying afloat. It's about market forces, not political favors. And the U.S. right now just can't offer what China can.
Exactly. And it really brings up this bigger question of how do global economics and geopolitics collide? How do you balance market realities with national interest? It's complicated.
It is food for thought, right? I mean, with this global semiconductor web, what happens when those two forces, the market and politics, when they really clash? What does it mean for technology, for who holds the reins globally? Lots to think about there. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Happy to do it.